Hello, I'm Esther Gitu. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris trade attacks as they seek to appeal to undecided voters. The 2024 YALI summit opens in Washington, D.C., bringing together over 700 young leaders from Africa to connect and build relationships. We'll have a live report. And a Kenyan entrepreneur's innovations is enabling paralyzed individuals to commute by public transport. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin our broadcast in the Middle East, where Israeli airstrikes killed at least 2 people and injured 3 others in southern Lebanon early Monday, according to Lebanon's state-run news agency. It came as Israel weighs its response to a rocket attack from Lebanon over the weekend that killed 12 youths on a soccer field in the Israel-controlled Golan Heights. The Israeli military on Sunday struck what it says were Hezbollah weapons, caches and infrastructure. Lebanon's state-run news agency is reporting extensive damage and some casualties, but the strikes appear to fall short of an overwhelming response threatened after the Saturday attack that killed mostly teenagers and young children. Thousands of Druze Arabs observed a day of mourning Sunday as many went by bus to Majdal Shams to attend the funerals of those killed. Israel blames Hezbollah for the attack, although the Iranian-backed militants denied any connection to it. An Israeli military spokesperson earlier told reporters that forensics showed that the rocket was an Iranian-made Falak 1. Hezbollah had announced firing a Falak 1 missile Saturday, saying it had aimed at an Israeli military headquarters. Now to U.S. politics. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump and Democratic presidential candidate Vice President Kamala Harris are on the attack against each other as they seek to appeal to undecided voters in swing states. The presidential race is expected to continue heating up now that Election Day is just a little more than 3 months away. VOA's Veronica Balderas Iglesias has the story.
With the U.S. general election about 100 days away, Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump ramped up his attacks against Democratic.
Are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
The Harris campaign says the former prosecutor has raised $200 million since President Joe Biden's endorsement, and that 66% came from first-time donors. New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, a Republican, expects the excitement around Harris's candidacy to wear off within 30 days. He advises the Trump-J.D. Vance ticket to stick to the policies instead of resorting to personal attacks.
Stick to what's driving anxiety. People have anxiety right now because they can't pay their bills. They have anxiety because they don't feel safe in their homes or in their communities. Those are the things that will drive them to go make a vote for Trump in November.
Maryland's Democratic Governor Wes Moore says he believes Harris's vision for the future will help her win over undecided voters in key swing states.
I think what people are saying now is we can finally have a conversation about the choice that people have in this election. That people see that it's not just that democracy is on the line. It's also the fact that basic values of how we think about economic freedoms are on the line.
Harris is expected to announce her vice presidential pick before the Democratic National Convention scheduled for August in Chicago. Political science professor June Spigman, who also is a Rhode Island state legislator, says candidates usually choose running mates that can balance the ticket.
Geographically is often the way it's done. She's from the West Coast, so let's choose someone from the Midwest who can bring votes that she might not otherwise get. Trump balanced the ticket with someone who was much younger than he was.
Harris has a busy week ahead with a scheduled campaign stop in Atlanta, Georgia. The Trump ticket will also hold campaign events in Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona in the coming days, according to their website. Veronica Valderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
The annual Washington Mandela Fellowship Summit hosted by the U.S. Department of State is happening this week here in Washington. This year's summit is connecting over 700 young leaders from sub-Saharan Africa to network and build relationships as well as foster connections between the African continent and the United States. VOA's Jackson Vunganyi is standing by live with a look into this year's summit. Hello, Jackson. Tell us more about what's happening this week at the summit.
Hello, Esther. Like you said, 700 young African leaders, part of the Mandela Fellowship program, are converging here at the Omni Sharam Hotel in Washington, D.C., like they usually do at the end of their 6-week of being part of whatever study programs in different or various educational institutions. And so today they are converging here, meeting with U.S. leaders in private sector, public sector, and just networking amongst themselves.
Ed Jackson, what did they do before converging here in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, so they spend 6 weeks in different institutions, universities, studying, basically getting to meet and learn from experts in their different fields. Many of them are leaders in whether it's in technology, entrepreneurship. Many of them are leaders in policy making, and they come in and meet with professors and teachers and just learn from them. Just like it's a 6 week of intense immersion in whatever field of study that they're engaged in, and after that, that's when they come to Washington, D.C., and then they have this type of program.
Jackson, years fly by quickly. We've covered the YALIs for quite some time now. It's the 10th anniversary of the summit. How are the attendees observing this important milestone?
Yeah, Esther, it's quite hard to believe that it's been 10 years. I remember reporting on this, when it first started 10 years ago. And here we are, it's already a decade. Over thousands of young African leaders have gone through this program. This year, they have, I think the program has selected 4 countries, 4 young leaders from 4 countries, and they're giving them grants to really build upon the programs that they have in their own countries. Leaders from Togo, they selected from Nigeria, from Benin, I believe, and others. Those whose projects being basically considered to have a bigger impact on their communities. And so, again, today here, they met with U.S. leaders, including Linda Thomas Greenfield, the U.S.'s UN ambassador, and this is what she said to them.
And I will say to you, you all stand on the shoulders of giants. But more than that, you are yourselves giants. You're helping to preserve the coastlines of Mozambique and care for and I was there and saw what you were doing, and you care for disabled communities in Nigeria. You're counseling young people with HIV in Namibia and protecting human rights in Ethiopia, forging sustainable peace in Sierra Leone, and fighting food waste in Togo. You are the future. And let me be clear, when I say you are the future, you're not just the future for Africa. You are the future for the world. Most experts agree that if the current trajectory holds, Africa's population will double by 2050 to 2.5 billion people, potentially a quarter of the world's population. And so the choices you make, the causes you take on, and the impact you create, really, it will change the world. So let me say to you, we are counting on you. Because I have to be honest, the world you're inheriting from us, the world we've left you with, is messy. It's filled with conflicts and contradictions and challenges. Challenges have an outsized impact on the people of Africa, from climate change to food insecurity to protracted conflict. But know that the United States is committed to being a partner for progress. We're committed to being a partner for progress as you address these challenges in your communities, in your countries, and on the continent writ large.
That was Linda Thomas Greenfield, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, basically emphasizing that these are the young leaders, currently the leaders of the continent. As we've seen around the continent, Gen Zs are part of these social political movements that are really changing or transforming the continent in every sector. So here at the YALI Summit this year, they're meeting just to, network and learn from each other. Back to you in the studio, Esther.
Jackson, powerful statement there from the U.S. ambassador to the UN. Thank you so much for your reporting. VOA's Jackson Bunganyi live for us from here in Washington at the Mandela Fellowship Summit. Russia's Wagner mercenary group says that its fighters and Malian soldiers took losses in heavy fighting against Tuareg rebels near Mali's border with Algeria. The rebel movement, the Permanent Strategic Framework for Peace, Security and Development, says that on Saturday it had seized armored vehicles, trucks and tankers in the fighting at the border town of Tinzawaten. Wagner, in a rare statement, says its forces fought alongside Malian soldiers from July 22nd to July 27th and that its fighters were commanded by Sergei Shevchenko. Wagner says Shevchenko was killed in the fighting. Still to come, a Kenyan entrepreneur helps disabled passengers get around Nairobi. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linoch Mudu, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
You're watching Africa 54, coming to you live from the Voice of America headquarters here in Washington, D.C. In other news, tragedy struck in the Democratic Republic of Congo over the weekend when at least 7 people were killed and many others were injured during a stampede at a music concert in Kinshasa. The stampede occurred Saturday at the Stade des Martyrs Stadium, where Kinshasa Governor Daniel Bumba says Mike Kalambayi, a popular Congolese gospel singer, was performing. Access to Chad's largest online news platform and the leading news Libyan criminal court has sentenced 12 current and former officials to up to 27 years in prison over their involvement in the collapse of 2 dams last year that sent a wall of water several meters high through the center of the coastal city of Derna. According to the office of the country's top prosecutor, thousands of people died. The Kamala Harris campaign says it has raised $200 million and signed up 170,000 new volunteers since she became the presumptive U.S. Democratic Party's nominee. But the big question remains, whom will she pick to be her running mate against Republicans Donald Trump and J.D. Vance? U.S. Chief National Correspondent Steve Harmon has more.
So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Kamala Harris, for the time being, campaigning solo for president. Among those under consideration to join her as the party's vice presidential candidate are a bunch of governors, including Roy Cooper of North Carolina, a Democrat who won twice when his state chose Republican Donald Trump for president, and Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, which both parties consider a must-win state in November. Then there's an astronaut who became a U.S. Senator, Arizona's Mark Kelly. With the Democratic National Convention just weeks away, it will be a rushed process.
The danger of an accelerated process is that things will be overlooked, mistakes will be made that a more leisurely process would have prevented. But she has no choice. She has to do it fast and get it right.
There's no science to getting it right. It's about selecting someone who can attract the most votes, especially in the handful of swing states likely to determine the outcome.
Ready, get set, go.
Ready, go.
That may mean focusing on geography rather than personality.
I think someone from the Midwest or even from the South would be a good choice. Andy Beshear, he's a governor from Kentucky. I think he would make a good choice. We want to make sure that we're balancing out the ticket because we have someone from California.
That someone from California is Kamala Harris. And since political considerations rule out the presidential and vice presidential candidates coming from the same state, that rules out Governor Gavin Newsom, widely expected to be a presidential candidate in a future election. What about 2 women on the ticket? Gretchen Whitmer is governor of the important swing state of Michigan, but does not appear keen to make history that way.
I am not leaving Michigan. I'm proud to be the governor of Michigan. I've been consistent. I know everyone is always suspicious and asking this question over and over again. I know you're doing your job. I'm not going anywhere.
Popularity as a governor or success in Congress does not guarantee making a big splash as a running mate, notes the author of 2 books about the vice presidency, Joel K. Goldstein.
Are they ready to shine on the national stage, which is quite different than running in one state or one district?
The second in command is also ideally someone the voters are comfortable with, just a heartbeat away from the presidency. Steve Herman, VOA News, at the White House.
A Kenyan entrepreneur is helping people in wheelchairs get around in a country that is hard for people with disabilities to navigate. Through his company, Ace Mobility, users can now hail cars and drivers equipped to accommodate disabled passengers. Victoria Munga explains from Nairobi.
The hustle and bustle of Kenya's public transportation is escalating as the population grows, but this sector is usually unforgiving for persons with disabilities. Brian Ndiritu is a corporate communications graduate who was born disabled. He says his mobility challenges complicate access to public buses and cabs.
It takes a lot of time to onboard, alight. So
You see, there's the whole planning. Sometimes drivers will just say, we won't carry you because, you are a burden.
A burden that Kenyan startup S-Mobility is helping to lift through the vehicles that are designed to accommodate disabled passengers. The cars are fitted with a ramp that lifts wheelchairs by remote control. The drivers are also trained as caregivers for passengers with special needs, like Ndirito.
I know that my wheelchair is safe because I'm not coming off my wheelchair. My wheelchair is safe, the travel is safe, the driver is conscious that I'm a person with disability. So there are some discussions I might not be comfortable with, maybe the cause of my disability, my private life.
Users are linked to drivers through a mobile app for $1 a kilometer. At least 500 people have downloaded the app, according to co-founder Daniel Kamala. He explains that their fleet of 15 cars are modified to include swivel seats that can be lowered to the ground, especially for the elderly when boarding the vehicles.
We're seeing a lot of interest from the conferences and summit industries. We're looking at more interest within the entertainment industry. We're also seeing normal and day-to-day commute, and also from the employer's point of view, who are now in a push to serve and employ more people with reduced mobilities.
Kenya's 2003 Persons with Disabilities Act prohibits the denial of services, education and job opportunities to people dealing with handicaps. But Kenya's National Council for Persons with Disabilities say improper infrastructure still prevents their full inclusion in society.
The public transport in Kenya is owned by private entities, so sometimes it is difficult for them to provide effective service delivery to persons with disabilities, because for them, as private entity, they consider any accommodation for persons with disability as an expense.
Transportation experts say insufficient funding has slowed down the adoption of most mobility solutions in Africa. S-Mobility was invited to pitch its business to investors at a summit in October hosted by the VUCA Group.
We're matching those types of projects with the funding, whether it's venture capital, bound and be scaled.
Authorities say technologies like S-Mobility can help the millions of Kenyans with disabilities live easier lives. Victoria Amunga, VOA News, Nairobi.
Vincent Ligoni is representing South Africa at the BMX freestyle event in the Paris Olympics. His son Hafji has the 27-year-old cyclist's story.
South African BMX rider Vincent Ligoni hopes his inclusion at the Olympic Games will inspire younger riders in South Africa and the African continent.
So, goal is top 10. But my ultimate goal out of all of this is actually just to bring the fun back in BMX.
BMX Freestyle returns for its second Olympic Games in Paris this year after making its debut in Tokyo in 2020. The competition will take place in an urban park where riders will perform as many tricks as possible in 60 seconds. The difficulty, height and style of their tricks will determine their scores. Alternative sports like BMX freestyle and skateboarding are new to the Olympics, and some question their inclusion in the Games. But BMX event organizer Ryan van der Spy says sports like skateboarding and BMX just open up new doors for South African athletes.
The sports are Olympic sports now, especially looking at skateboarding and BMX freestyle. The biggest issue I think we have here locally is there's not enough facilities. So there's not enough facilities for riders and skaters to train on, get used to the competitive background of the sports.
Ligoni still has to hold down a job as a tattoo artist for the moment because he says he can't make a living riding full-time.
I did live for 2 years on just riding. It's not a living. You are scraping month to month. You pay your medical aid, you pay for your car and your car insurance, and that's it. You're done.
Ligoni, who fell in love with riding BMX freestyle as a youngster, says the sport offers many life lessons for young BMX riders.
You learn how to be persevere. When you're battling a trick for 5-6 hours the whole day and your body is sore and you just got to keep trying. You got to just keep going and figuring it out. It teaches you hey, sometimes things aren't going to work out and you got to be okay with that.
Being a trailblazer for the sport of BMX freestyle in South Africa, Ligoni now aims to do well at the Olympics and inspire and motivate more young people to pursue and participate in the sport. Ehsan Hefji, VOA News, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.